If you're coming to visit Boston in summertime, this video will break down a list of things that you need to do while you're here. First on the list is to check out a Boston Red Sox game at Fenway Park. There's nothing more Boston, or even American, than checking out a baseball game in summertime. The Red Sox and the city of Boston are totally intertwined. The Red Sox are really just a part of Boston culture. Everybody in Boston loves their team. It's more than a game to most, it's a lifestyle. When you sing along to Neil Diamond and Sweet Caroline with the crowd in the middle of the 8th inning, you really start to grasp what I'm trying to explain. Oh, and make sure to get a Fenway Frank while you're here. Fenway Park is an American icon itself. Baseball is considered America's pastime, and Fenway Park is the oldest active park in Major League Baseball. It completely contrasts with some of the new massive stadiums that have been built in recent years. It's like stepping back in sports history while you're here, and depending on where you sit, you might actually end up in seats that are still made of wood. They're not the most comfortable, but they do set the tone for the experience. Even if the Red Sox are out of town while you're in Boston in the summertime, a tour of Fenway Park is still a great use of your time. Tours run all day and give you behind the scenes access to the park. You'll be able to view it from angles that you wouldn't normally have access to during a game. Fenway Park is fairly easy to get to. If you're coming from City Center, take the Green Line of the T, the nickname for Boston's public transit, to Kenmore Station. Not the Fenway Station, which is confusing for out-of-towners, because the Kenmore Station, if you're coming from City Center, is actually closer to Fenway Park than the Fenway Station itself. If you're coming from the west, however, the Fenway Station of the Green Line is indeed the right stop for you. You can also easily get to Fenway at the Lansdowne station of the commuter rail. I don't recommend trying to park in the area. It's a nightmare at game time. Take advantage of the public transportation that's going to be cheaper in addition to easier. Another activity that is well worth your while during the summertime in Boston is to stroll the Boston Common and the adjacent Boston Public Garden. The Boston Common and the Boston Public Garden are large green spaces in the middle of the city. Any of the T lines will get you here. Founded in 1634, the Boston Common is actually Boston's oldest park. In summertime, the Frog Pond will be on full display. It's shallow, so don't dive in head first. From the Boston Common, you can get started on a tour of the Freedom Trail, which is a 2.5-mile long red brick path through Boston that passes by 17 locations that are significant to the history of the United States, including the Old North Church, one if by land, two if by sea, and the site of the Boston Massacre. There's also the brand new Embrace statue depicting the hug between Martin Luther King Jr. and Coretta Scott King upon hearing the news that he had won the 1964 Nobel Peace Prize. Adjacent to the Boston Common is the Public Garden. The Public Garden is a beautiful green space where you can explore walkable pathways with lush trees, blooming plants, and a lagoon. You're all but guaranteed to hear some live music while walking through here. It really is quite impressive how this public garden is maintained too. Definitely one of the more fun and free spots to check out in Boston. While in the Public Garden, make sure you check out the Make Way for Ducklings statue, and in summertime, the iconic swan boats will be active. If you're going to go on one of these, do it to check something off of your bucket list, not because it's actually a wild, fun time. The pond is fairly small and you just circle around it. It is worth noting that this attraction has remained largely unchanged for generations, so while it might not be the most exciting part of your trip to Boston, it's at least a historic experience. If you want to get on the water and see both Boston and Cambridge from a unique angle, head over to the Charles River and go kayaking. Kayaking the Charles River in Boston gives you a vantage point of the city that you can't really get anywhere else because you're in the middle of a fairly wide river. Looking towards Boston from the middle of the Charles River, you'll be able to take in the greenery of the Charles River Esplanade with a backdrop of the brownstones in Back Bay, with another backdrop of the new buildings in the area such as the Prudential Center. Quite the blend. The river is almost always incredibly calm too, so you shouldn't have to worry too much about tipping over, although you might have to compete with boat traffic depending on the time of the week. Definitely a good spot if you've never kayaked before. There are several launch points along the river where you can rent kayaks. On the Cambridge side of the river near Kendall Square is the Charles River Canoe and Kayak Company. They have another location further down the Charles River, although I suspect this is slightly more out of the way for folks visiting from out of town. You can also check out community boating, which is right on the Esplanade on the Boston side of the river and likely more accessible to someone visiting from out of town. If you'd like a bit more of a unique experience, you can check out a sailboat. While community boating on the Charles River does offer kayaks for renting, they really specialize in teaching people how to sail on the Charles River. While the Charles River and sailing on it is a blast and probably a great option for beginners, you can take in a different view of the city by crossing downtown and learning how to sail in the Boston Harbor. The aptly named Boston Harbor Sailing Club is a great place to get started. Sailing in the harbor provides a beautiful view of downtown Boston. Granted, sailing here will probably expose you to a bit more commercial boat traffic if you accidentally end up off course, but hey, the view is worth the risk. If you're really concerned about wrecking your sailboat, consider finding a fun cruise of the Boston Harbor. Summertime is a great time to eat and drink on the deck of a boat boat and take in the skyline views of the city. There are a ton of options out there, whether you want a daytime or nighttime cruise. If you want a cheap cruise, Boston does offer ferries as part of its public transit system. There's no food or drink, but you could always utilize this transportation to see the city from the harbor at a very low cost. I mentioned it earlier, but when you are back on ground, it is certainly worth it to check out the Charles River Esplanade. The Charles River Esplanade is a beautiful park that runs along the banks of the Charles River. It stretches for 3 miles from the Museum of Science to the Boston University Bridge. In summer, you can stop at the Night Shift Beer Garden and rehydrate from the summer sun. High probability that you will have an opportunity to pet a dog while here. There are also free concerts at the Hatch Memorial Shell, which is a stage in the middle of the Esplanade that also hosts the Boston Pops and other performers on the 4th of July. If you have kids traveling with you, the Esplanade has multiple playgrounds for you to choose from and enable you to wear your kids out so you can get some sleep at night. Walking here is scenic with all of the great views. It's common to see picnics in the park or on piers that sit on the river, and the trails along the river are flat, so walking along here shouldn't be too exhausting of an experience for you. Overall, the Charles River Esplanade is a beautiful and vibrant park that offers something for everyone. Whether you're looking to enjoy a scenic bike ride, taking a free concert, or simply relax by the river, the Esplanade is a must-visit destination in Boston, and it's free. If you're visiting Boston, moving to Boston, or want to learn even more about the city and what you could do here, subscribe to see similar videos or peruse the channel for more information about this beautiful city. A lot of people are surprised to learn that Boston has beaches. And while there are some great beaches outside of the city, Boston proper itself has multiple beaches. This is something that totally surprised me when I first moved to Boston. South Boston, also known as Southie, has Carson Beach, M Street Beach, and Pleasure Bay. Carson Beach is the closest to public transportation on the Red Line, but still a tad bit of a hike from here. Unfortunately, alcohol is not allowed on these beaches. Not that that rule has ever stopped anyone from drinking, just know that technically you could get into trouble. While it looks far away from city center on a map, you can also head across the Boston Harbor to Revere Beach in East Boston. This is actually very easy to get to if you take the Blue Line. Revere Beach is known for its sculptures in the summer, which is really fun to see in person. The beach does come with a bit of reputation, although I've never had any issues there. It's an awfully wide beach too, which is something that caught me off guard the first time that I visited. Granted, none of these beaches are the white sands of the Caribbean. The water is not clear blue. It's going to be colder than spots closer to the equator, but it can definitely scratch your itch for a day at the beach, and you don't have to go that far. If you want to see all of the most popular spots in Boston without walking around, be sure to check out a duck boat tour. A duck boat tour in Boston is a unique and popular way to explore the city. These tours occur on duck boats, which are amphibious vehicles that can operate both on land and in water. Originally used during World War II, these boats have now been repurposed for tourism. During the tour, a knowledgeable guide provides a lively and informative narration about the history, landmarks, and trivia about Boston. It's not uncommon for the guides to often dress in costumes or uniforms fitting the historical context of Boston. The tour typically starts with a land tour showcasing Boston's historical sites like Faneuil Hall, the Massachusetts State House, and the Old State House, and more. One of the highlights of the tour is when the vehicle turns into a boat and goes into the Charles River, and this is yet another opportunity to see Boston from the water. If you're budgeting for time, note that the duck boat tours typically last around 80 minutes. Do be sure to book in advance because these tours are very popular and almost guaranteed to sell out during the summer. Quack, quack, you'll know what I mean after you go on the tour. After a day of exploring the city, you're probably going to be hungry. Boston has a ton of good restaurants to eat at, but in summer, you should really take advantage of the weather and find a patio for dining. Look, Boston has long winters. The city is practically in the same time zone as Nova Scotia, so the sun sets at like 4:15 when we first set our clocks back. By the time summer hits, everyone is ready to be eating dinners on a patio. You can find restaurants all over the city with outdoor dining. It's like they know that this option is good for business. Some restaurants with patios that I would recommend based on my experience include Alcove, Audubon, and Public Street Bistro, but these are just scratching the surface of the options that are out there. Let me know in the comments if you know of any other good patio spots in Boston, because I really do want to check some out selfishly. And do know that when possible, you should probably make a reservation in advance. If you have a green thumb or just like beer, head to the Seaport and check out the Cisco Brewers Beer Garden. Per Cisco Brewers' own website, the beer garden features an extensive portfolio of beers. You can also expect live music and a wide selection of food. While in the Seaport, check out Boston's newest neighborhood and how it contrasts with older parts of the city. Seriously, this area, as recently as 10 years ago, just used to be docks and parking lots, most of which had been sitting empty right across from downtown Boston for quite a while. Now, this is one of the trendiest spots in the city and increasingly more popular for Bostonians and tourists alike. While you miss out on a lot of Boston charm in this area, you definitely will be having fun. There's a putt shack. There's going to be one of the only F1 arcade bars in the world, opening very soon, and the Cisco Brewers Beer Garden puts you right in the middle of it all. The last recommendation that I have for visiting Boston during summertime is to check out Castle Island. Castle Island is an old fortification that has been converted into a park of sorts. You can stroll along the Harbor Walk for views of the Boston Harbor. Castle Island Beach is yet another beach in Boston proper. Sullivan's on Castle Island offers famous and iconic foods that will put you in a true Bostonian mindset. Walking through the old fort is a step into history, and tours are available if you want to learn more. If you look at Castle Island on a map, you'll see that technically it is no longer an island. In 1928, Castle Island was connected to the mainland of Boston by a narrow strip of land. Even with this false advertisement of a name, this is still a classic Boston summer spot that you should definitely check out. And look, Boston has a lot of other things going for it too. This video really just hits on a couple of things that you could do here during the summer. You could also go tour the USS Constitution, walk down Commonwealth Avenue, or go on a bar crawl of Boston dives. Boston also has awesome art museums and a noteworthy aquarium, but I personally save these activities for the winter when I can't take advantage of the activities listed here that can only happen outside during the summer. So this concludes my video of 10 things to do in Boston during the summer. Please let me know in the comments if I missed any important can't miss activities in Boston during this time of year, or if you would add anything to any of the activities that were listed. Please like the video if you enjoyed and subscribe to see similar videos.